welcome to the deep dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we're embarking on, well, a really special exploration. We're aiming for a detailed, beautiful, insightful, engaging, and really positive analysis of Law of One, Session 97.
That's the goal. It's based on listener source material, as always.
Exactly. And our mission today is maximum understanding. We're going to carefully look at each question, each answer in this pretty profound session.
And this session, it's from September 15th, 1982. It continues that dialogue between the questioner and Ra.
Ra being that social memory complex.
Yeah.
A sort of unified group consciousness.
Right, from the confederation of planets in service to the one infinite creator. It's quite something to get into this intricate material question by question.
It really is. So
Okay.
the session starts, as usual, with a check on the instrument's condition.
His response.
Just as previously stated. Very concise.
Mm-hmm. Same for the next point.
Yeah, the questioner asks about the fifth density negative friend. And again, the answer is as previously stated.
So these quick openings, they sort of set the stage, remind us it's an ongoing conversation.
They absolutely do. Acknowledges the context, the history there.
Right. There's a whole dynamic that carries over session to session.
Okay, so let's get into the first really substantive question. This one involves card 3 of a tarot deck, and specifically a hawk image.
Ah, yes. The questioner has a whole analysis worked out.
They do. They interpret the hawk as a message from their higher self.
And the downward wing is key for them.
Exactly. They see it indicating a negative message, specifically about some mental activity or maybe a plan.
And directed towards the female member of the group as catalyst. It's very layered.
It is. You can see them really working with the symbolism, connecting it to their situation.
Actively trying to decode it, using the Law of One framework, linking universal symbols to, well, their own inner guidance.
So after all that detailed interpretation, Ra's response.
Just, no.
Simple. Direct. Almost feels abrupt, doesn't it?
It can seem that way, but the questioner's next question is crucial.
Right. They immediately ask, is the reason for this lack of comment the first distortion, the law of free will?
And that's the key. The law of free will is, well, paramount for Ra.
They consistently avoid anything that might unduly influence individual interpretation or choice.
Exactly. So when Ra confirms this is correct, it reinforces that principle. It's a major point, for you listening.
Yeah.
This deep respect for free will is woven all through these dialogues.
Even the no isn't just a negation. It's tied to why they can't elaborate. The interpretation is ultimately up to the individual.
Precisely.
Okay, so this leads the questioner to share something personal. Seeing a hawk after returning from Atlanta.
Ah, another hawk experience.
Yes, and they interpret this one also as a higher self message, this time advising against a planned move.
What's their reasoning there?
They felt the sighting was unusual, specific, a kind of unique catalyst. It suggested to them that there must be a flaw in the plan, otherwise why the unusual sign? The plan would have just proceeded.
So they're really reading significance into the timing and nature of the event, looking for guidance in their environment.
Which many people do, right? Seek meaning in coincidences or unusual events.
Definitely. But Ra's response here adds some important nuance.
Yeah, they say they're treading close to the law of confusion.
Which relates to not giving answers that are too clear, potentially hindering the learning process.
Right. And Ra suggests that not every winged creature automatically carries some deep archetypal meaning.
That's a really vital distinction for you to consider. It's a caution against maybe over-interpreting every little thing.
So finding that balance between looking for meaning and just letting things be.
Exactly. Ra guides towards discernment. Don't assume that every bird is a direct message from your higher self.
But then Ra adds another layer, which is fascinating. They suggest that noticing these kinds of shared, subjectively significant phenomena, like maybe multiple people noticing the same unusual thing.
Yeah.
It's apparently common when people involved have shared significant polarity work in a past incarnation.
So echoes from past lives, maybe. Focused on service to self or service to others, lessons.
Kind of like resonances, yeah. These shared events can then act as a form of communication between those individuals.
But Ra can't elaborate on the specifics.
No, because that would infringe on the free will of the people involved. The meaning is personal to them.
That's profound. It suggests subtle connections and communications happening beneath the surface, tied to past shared experiences, but veiled by free will.
Okay, shifting gears a bit, the conversation turns to something much more mundane. An unusual smell in the room that morning.
Right, the practicalities intrude.
And Ra gives a two-part explanation. First, a decomposing rodent.
Okay, straightforward enough.
But second, an elemental trying to take up residence in the remains.
An elemental, like a lower level nature spirit or energy form.
That seems to be the context, yes. That typical law of one blend of the physical and the, well, metaphysical.
It reminds you that even everyday things can have energetic dimensions.
And the solution was also twofold. Cleansing rituals and incense discouraged the elemental.
Using intention and ritual to affect the energetic environment.
Right, and simple decomposition would take care of the physical smell eventually. Practical advice, grounded in both worlds.
It highlights that connection between inner states, intention, and the outer physical world.
So the questioner then returns to their personal issue, the potential move. They admit the hawk sighting is weighing heavily on their decision.
They're trying to figure out the right path.
And they state their core objective clearly. The law of one work, the contact, communication, getting the information out there.
So the move is directly linked to how they can best serve that objective.
Exactly, which leads to the quandary. What's the best situation? What if the move is wrong and negatively impacts their service? It's a very relatable dilemma, trying to align big life choices with your purpose.
You can hear their commitment to the work, evaluating everything through that lens. It shows how integrated these principles are becoming for them.
Ray's response here is, well, it's firm but also gentle, I think.
How so?
They point out the questioner's presumption in asking for such direct guidance on a personal choice.
Back to free will again. A direct comment would be an infringement.
Right. But Ra does offer subtle guidance. They suggest reflecting on what was already said about winged creatures.
Nudging them towards their own interpretation of the earlier points.
And they affirm that any properly prepared workspace is acceptable for the contact. The choice really belongs to the group.
So, not giving the answer, but empowering them to find it by pointing back to principles and affirming their own agency.
Classic, Ra. It really is. Empowering self-reflection, trusting their process.
Okay, so then the topic shifts to the Law of One tarot deck itself.
Yes. The questioner wants to know about removing items from the first 4 cards, things maybe not part of Ra's original intention to avoid confusion in new drawings.
Trying to refine the tool.
But Ra's first response is brief, suggests it's repetitive, asks for a rephrasing.
Implying it's maybe been covered or needs more focus. Ra's is very efficient.
They don't waste energy. So the questioner refines it. Okay, I've already figured out some things to remove, but have I missed anything from Ra's original intention recently?
More specific.
And Ra answers that yes, several concepts in each image are astrologically based.
Oh, interesting. So not purely Ra's archetypes.
Apparently not purely, but Ra says these astrological elements aren't without merit if they're understood appropriately with discernment.
So layers of symbolism, the core archetype, plus these other influences.
But then Ra gives a really strong caution. They advise against trying to create a complete and infallible series of images.
So don't treat it like a perfect fixed system.
Exactly. Ra explains the real purpose of these concept complexes, the cards. It's to help investigate the great architecture of the archetypical mind.
A tool for inner exploration.
And to help develop faith and will. They're not meant for fortune-telling in a rigid sense, but as catalysts for understanding the deep mind.
That's a critical point for anyone working with tarot, especially this deck. It's about the inner journey, not just predicting outcomes.
Then Ra uses this powerful analogy, comparing it to the stunning mystery of the one infinite creator.
Meaning
the archetypical mind, being a product of third density, cannot fully resolve paradox or bring about ultimate unity. That's beyond its scope.
So the tool has inherent limitations based on our density.
Right. So Ra encourages looking beyond just the inward analysis of symbols, to also behold the glory and mystery of oneness. Don't get lost in the weeds of individual symbols.
See the forest, not just the trees. The archetypes point towards unity, but aren't unity itself.
Precisely. Ra says they are messengers of unity, not messengers of the complex system of symbols.
The symbols are a means, not the end.
The real value is in the process. Grasping the concept, articulating them inwardly, and using this resource of the deep mind to develop adepthood.
Adepthood, like spiritual mastery or integration.
That's the sense, yeah. Using the archetypes actively for growth, not just analyzing them passively.
Okay, that provides really important context for how to approach this material.
So then they move specifically to card number 5, the Significator of the mind.
The mind card.
The questioner's initial take. It shows a male figure inside a rectangle. They see this as the mind being bounded, limited by the third density illusion,
Yeah.
lacking mobility on its own.
That sounds like a pretty insightful starting point, recognizing the mind's container within this reality.
Ra agrees they've grasped the barest essence, and then asks that amazing rhetorical question aimed at the student, at you, the listener.
Which is?
Consider for the self, O student, whether your thoughts can walk.
Ah, that really makes you pause.
It does. It perfectly illustrates that even the sharpest mind, the most expansive thoughts, still need the physical body for expression, for action in this density.
Thoughts need legs, so to speak, a powerful reminder of the mind-body connection here.
Then the questioner notices the figure is looking to the left,
And interprets that
as the mind's tendency to more easily notice or focus on negative catalysts, negative experiences, challenges.
And Ra confirms this.
This says this is substantially correct, which honestly feels very true to human experience, doesn't it? That negativity bias.
It really does. We often seem wired to spot the potential threat or problem first, recognizing that bias is key.
Definitely. Then the detail level increases. Two small entities at the bottom of the seat. The questioner initially sees them as black and white.
Representing polarity.
That's the questioner's first thought, yeah. But they first ask about the accuracy. Are the colors and positions correct compared to Ray's original drawings, showing that commitment to getting it right?
Meticulous. Important when dealing with specific symbolism.
So Ray corrects the color. The one perceived as black was originally red.
Red, not black. Interesting. Position is okay, though.
Position is otherwise correct, yeah. Just that color adjustment.
Okay, so then the questioner asks about the meaning, presumably of red and white now.
Right. Do they indicate the positive and negative polarization of the mind?
And Ray confirms.
Confirms the polarity indication, yes, and adds that russet, a reddish-brown, was the older symbol for the left-hand path.
The service to self path. So redress it connects to that historical esoteric symbolism.
Exactly. Adds another layer to the color meaning in this context.
Fascinating. But then there's an interruption.
Yes. The transcript notes the instrument starts having throat difficulties. They have to pause, rewalk the circle of one.
That ritual to rebalance the energy for the contact.
Right. It's a stark reminder of the physical toll this kind of channeling can take, the sensitivities involved.
Absolutely. Shows the dedication, but also the vulnerability.
So after the pause, the questioner asks about the problem, the cause of the throat issue. Very considerate.
And what does Ra say?
Rod explains it was complex. That fifth density negative entity they mentioned earlier had affected a pre-existing throat weakness in the instrument.
Okay, so an external influence interacting with an internal vulnerability.
And apparently compounded because the instrument hadn't fully disclosed the problem beforehand.
Ah, communication breakdown adding to it.
Plus, allergies were acting up, increasing mucus, which worsened the throat, and triggered a reflex in the yellow body.
The physical chemical body. So a cascade of factors.
Pretty much. Energetic, physical, communication, all playing a part.
Wow. It really highlights the intricacies of managing these contacts.
Then there's a practical request to Ra. Remind the group to have the instrument cough before or after questions to help clear things.
Proactive care from the support group.
And Ra gives reassurance that once conscious, the instrument should be okay. It shows that collaborative effort to maintain the connection and the instrument's well-being.
Good. So the questioning resumes.
Yes. Now asking about the placement of those polarity figures. The dark one, originally red on the right, and the white one on the left, relative to the main figure.
Okay, the positioning itself.
But just before Ra answers, the transcript notes a serious pain flare reported by the instrument.
Another indication of the intensity? Perhaps related to the topic of polarity itself?
Could be. It underscored the energetic weight of these concepts.
So what's Ra's explanation for the placement? Red on the right, white on the left.
Ra gives this really interesting insight into polarity. They say positive experiences can sometimes, paradoxically, lead to negative biases developing.
Huh, how so?
Maybe getting attached to pleasure or developing arrogance from success. That's my speculation.
Okay, I can see that. And the reverse.
And conversely, seemingly negative experiences, hardship, loss can foster a stronger bias toward service to others, building empathy, resilience.
Wow. That flips conventional thinking, doesn't it? That hardship can be more spiritually positive in outcome sometimes.
It really does. And this understanding, Ross says, guides the placement of those symbols. Red on the right, white on the left. It's based on this deeper, somewhat paradoxical dynamic of how polarity develops through experience.
Yeah, that's a lot to ponder. Challenges simple good, bad labels for experiences.
Then Ra points to the hands of the main figure. the significator of the mind.
What about the hands?
The right hand gestures outward, symbolizing service to others,
Okay.
while the left hand is shown trying to absorb power for the self.
Ah, a direct visual representation of the two paths. Service to others versus service to self.
Exactly. Right there in the posture of the mind figure. Very clear symbolism once it's pointed out.
That's incredibly concise and powerful imagery.
Then, the focus shifts down to the bottom of the card again. 8 cartouches.
Little panels with symbols.
Yeah. The questioner suggests they might signify energy centers, the chakras maybe, and the evolutionary journey through them.
Makes sense. And the colors may be indicating polarity at each stage.
That's the idea. And Ra confirms the questioner is being perceptive here. They encourage continuing to study octaves in relation to this card.
Octaves. The cycles of evolution and beingness in the law of one cosmology.
Right. Ra stresses there are many octaves of beingness, and thinking about them alongside polarity development is beneficial. It opens up a huge field for contemplation evolution through densities, through energy centers, all tied to our polarity choices.
So the card isn't just about the mind in isolation, but the mind's journey through the whole evolutionary structure.
Seems that way, yeah. A map of potential development.
Okay, what about the symbols on those cartouches? Birds and so on. Do they have specific meanings relevant to the mind archetype?
The questioner asks that. Ra's answer is interesting. They say the symbols are like letters and words from a language of a different generation.
Meaning not immediately translatable, perhaps, or holding an older wisdom?
Something like that. They offer a rough suggestion for the overall meaning conveyed by the symbols on the cartouches.
Which is?
And you shall be born again to eternal life.
Wow. Okay, so connecting the mind's journey through the octaves and polarities to themes of rebirth and eternity.
Adds this layer of ancient Egyptian resonance, perhaps, and deep spiritual promise.
That's quite beautiful, actually.
It is. Finally, the questioner offers one last thought. Maybe the wings at the top of the card signify the spirit protecting this whole evolutionary process.
A nice idea. Does Ra comment?
They don't get the chance. Ra indicates they need to end the session prematurely.
Why? What happened?
They state there's considerable difficulty using the sympathetic nervous system to help the instrument breathe.
Oh, dear. So a physiological limit reached.
Yes. A really poignant moment showing the fragility of the physical body as a conduit for this level of energy or information.
A powerful reminder of the realities and challenges of this work.
But even then, Ra offers to take one brief final query. Very gracious.
And the questioner?
Is equally considerate. Asks if there's anything they can do to improve the contact or help the instrument's comfort, but explicitly says Ra doesn't need to answer if it's too difficult.
Real care shown there.
Ra reassures them everything's okay, the support group is functioning well.
That's good to hear.
They suggest the instrument needs time to recover from the throat and chest issues, acknowledging that past energetic work might have lingering physical effects that just need time to heal, especially with allergies complicating things.
So rest and recovery needed.
And they mention the careful consideration given to alignments, the preparation for sessions.
Always crucial.
And then Ra gives their closing.
The standard farewell.
Yes. We leave you in the love and the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing powerfully in the peace, in the great dance, and power of the one infinite Creator. Adonai.
Adonai. A powerful session covering so much ground, from specific symbols to the nature of guidance, polarity, the structure of the mind's evolution, and the practical challenges of the contact itself.
It really touched on many key themes. The nature of messages, subjective meaning versus archetypes, the deep intricacies of polarity, that fascinating look at the significator of the mind.
And always that underlying respect for free will and the ultimate goal of unity.
Absolutely. It really underscores the richness of the law of one material for understanding ourselves and, this journey of spiritual evolution we're all on.
That discussion about how positive experiences can lead to negative bias and vice versa, that really sticks with me. It challenges you to look differently at your own life experiences.
It does. It encourages reflection on how you interpret things, how you choose your path through Catalyst.
Maybe a final thought for you listening is to consider that dance within yourself, the interplay between your own interpretations, your inner world, and these larger universal principles Ra talks about. How does your mind engage with polarity? How do you seek unity amidst the complexity?
A beautiful point to ponder. It's an ongoing dance for all of us.
Namaste.
I am you and you are me.